All right, guys, what's happening? What's happening? Happy Thursday to you. It is Thursday, May 26th, 2022. And this morning, we're going to talk about the difference between the symptom versus the actual problem. Like, what is the difference? And there's a lot of things in the world right now going on that we get to experience the symptom. But I think for a lot of people, we skip over the actual problem that exists, and the actual problem that exists is really what needs to be discussed when all the time in the world is spent on discussing the symptom. We're going to talk about that and how it impacts culture, both in the world, in your company, in your life, in your family, all of the above. You actually have to get to the root cause of problems as opposed to just focusing on in discussing and debating and arguing about the symptom. That's what we're going to talk about this morning. Let's get started.
It is ultimately important for you to look at your goals, truly what you want to do in your life, and then look at the people who you spend the most time with in your life and figure out if that lines up.
All right, guys, what's happening? Happy Thursday to you. I hope you guys are having an awesome morning. This morning's discussion is going to be one that hopefully will make everybody think. Anybody that's watching this, listening to this, whether you're watching live or you catch this on the replay, hopefully this will make you think. You know, over the last couple of days, there's been a lot going on. Lots going on in our country, and the terrible things that happen from time to time in our country create interesting conversation. And when you are a person that's really observant and you're a person that really focuses on being aware of what's going on around you, I like to think that I'm one of those people. You start to see part of what's wrong and what is misaligned in our country and in our culture and in our society. And it is that for so many different things, and these are just extreme examples of what we're going to talk about this morning. For so many things, we are so busy focused on the symptom that we see, the actions that people take that obviously in some cases are horrific. We are focused on the symptom, the thing that actually, makes people act out, and we don't actually get to the root cause of the problem. And this is the case, whether it's an extreme case like this, or whether it's inside of your business or inside of your family. You look at the things that people do, the actions that people take, but we rarely look at what is actually the root cause of the problem. And for so many people, these things repeat themselves over and over and over again in their lives. And in the case of the tragedy that happened this week in Texas, this is another example of what happens when we don't get focused on the actual problem. And what is the actual problem? Well, that's the conversation. What is the actual problem? Because there's many different opinions and they all need to be discussed. What happens when we come to a problem like this, we experience a symptom. We get so focused on the symptom, and then we go to our own corners and we start to talk about what we think the solution to the problem is. And we never really get to an open and honest conversation about what the real problem is, because there's a variety of different things that contribute to all the things that we experience in life. Again, whether it is a cultural problem in our business where somebody's unhappy and it kind of takes on a life of its own, where people start talking and they start gossiping and things start happening, or whether it's an extreme case of an issue like the events that happened in Texas. The problem in our society and in our country and on social media and everywhere is that we get so focused and outraged on the symptom that we don't actually spend time talking about the real problem. And so I encourage you all to think about that today. What is it that's going on in your life, in your business, in your community that needs to be talked about? And it needs to be talked about in an open and honest way where people don't just argue and they don't just take sides and they don't just go and politicize things, but they actually have an open and honest conversation and they genuinely listen to things. And it doesn't become a production. It doesn't become some of the things that, we see every time something happens tragically. It becomes, this production of things that, blurs the core issue, it blurs the core problem. And it really bothers me, that people get so outraged by the symptom that they cannot spend any time focusing on what could be the problem. And man, it just it bothers me so much that we have come to a place in our society and in our world where people can't talk, where people are so judgmental and so so stuck in their own ways that they can't see that sometimes the solution to the problem is really just going back to the core principles of caring for each other, being open-minded, having open and honest conversations. Debating and arguing certainly is part of the process, but it's to be done respectfully. It's to be done with care and grace. And it's not meant to end up divisive. And when we experience these things in our lives that rock us to our core, certainly there's generally an emotional response to a lot of these things, but we have to be able to process that past just the emotion, and we have to be able to get to a place where there's real resolution to things, and there's real conversation, and we have to be able to see things from other people's perspectives. And this is what's missing in the world. It's missing everywhere in the world. It's not just when these things happen. It has been exacerbated by the availability of technology, social media, the ability to find a bunch of people that agree with you and just stick by them. It has been glaringly obvious that the politicians in our country are more worried about their own causes for the most part than they are doing what's right. People's emotional intelligence, in my opinion, is at an all-time low, where we don't have the ability to open our minds and open our hearts to new ideas, to how we can meet in the middle, how we can actually find resolution to things, how we can have conversations and be open to those people that don't share our party or share our same ideas, agree with us on certain topics. We need to talk about these things. We need to figure out what is the actual problem. What is the actual problem, not just the symptom that shows up? Because the symptom is nothing but a result of the bigger problem that exists. And when we look at these things, you guys might be sitting there thinking right now, I wonder which side of this he is on. I'm on the side of eliminating the problem and not focusing on the symptom. And anybody that tells you that they have the resolution, they have the solution to the problem, doesn't understand that it takes a bigger conversation to get to that point. And in my opinion, we don't have leadership in our country that is capable of having that conversation. We don't have leadership in this country that is capable of setting the example necessary to be able to bring people together. And that's not a shot at any individual, by the way. I'm talking as a whole. There's a lot of leaders in our country. We need leaders that step to the plate with grace, with care, and that bring people together, that figure out that the symptom is nothing more than the result of what we allow in our society. And so we have to be better. We have to show the example of this on how we live and how we have these conversations and what we're willing to talk about and what we're willing to do. This is uncomfortable for me. You know, to talk about a topic like this is very sensitive, but I don't want to focus on just the problem and the issue and the tragedy and the heartbreak that everybody experiences when something like this happens. We have to get to the point of having the conversation, the real conversation, not just the surface level outrage that happens every time something like this happens. And it comes down to a couple simple principles to me. You got to care for people, man, and you gotta live outside of just your own thoughts and your own things, and you got to care for people, man. And when people are hurting, we have to figure out why they're hurting and why people are, creating normal out of abnormal and creating the new normal, as they call it, and all these different things, man. These are all part of the root cause problem that we're experiencing. And when we're brave enough to have that conversation, and we don't have people that create a sideshow out of this, and we don't, have people that are responding with their, formulated words on television and in the press and all these different places, but we actually sit down and have a real conversation about how these things can be resolved, we'll get there. I fear that we're pretty far off of that right now. And I fear that I'm not sure we have leaders in our country right now in government positions that are capable of bringing this together. I hope I'm wrong, but I haven't seen it yet. And so we, the people, need to set an example of what that looks like. We need to be willing to have the conversations. We need to be willing to embrace the difficult ideas of how do we fix these huge, huge problems that exist in our society. And it comes down to people don't do these things that aren't really, really hurting. And what are they hurting from? Well, there's a lot of things, man. The list is long. How do we stop it? How do we get to a point of making people understand that values really matter, man, and the decisions that we make in this country to normalize certain things, whether it be, video games or, pornography or anything that we normalize in this country. These are tough decisions. These are things that have ravaged our society and the values and the core of who we are. And people think it's normal because it's become normal in our society to have these things everywhere. And so we all know, I believe at our core, what normal is, what the truth is, what real values look like, what real principles look like, and how we care for people and how we help those people who are hurting, and we provide real solutions to real problems. Or the alternative is we can continue to debate back and forth and argue about it and come to zero resolution like it has been for the last decades. And so when you look at it, we got to do better, guys. And we have to push these people who are in office to either do better or get out of the way. Because, you hear from people that want to make it better, who have been career politicians that haven't done anything in the decades that they've been representing we the people. So that's the challenge. They either have to figure out how to have conversations, open conversations that are actually productive, and stop being so self-absorbed and so worried about their own careers and their own politics that they can't solve even the simplest of problems. That's it. It's not a Republican or a Democrat thing. It's a people thing. It's an issue that exists that people are so self-consumed and so worried about what it is that they say on camera or what position they have or what votes they will lose, that the entire idea, the entire foundation of what they're supposed to represent in this country is lost. And so we have to do better. We can make a difference. We, the people, can make a difference by how we behave, by how we live, by how we communicate, and how we embrace the other side. Whatever position you have in this world, I encourage you to go find somebody that disagrees with you and have a conversation. And at the end of that conversation, you're going to find out that you have a lot more in common with that person than you thought you did. And you'll have a much different appreciation for who they are. And if you're genuinely interested in who that person is and what they stand for and why they stand for it and all of those things, you're going to learn so much about them and so much about yourself in that process. And you might actually get them to listen to you. But if all we do is repeat the same patterns and the same discussions over and over and over again, if we just rinse and repeat the same problems, we will continue to experience the same symptoms. It's a big conversation, and it's important that we have it. And so today, do something that makes a difference in that realm. Listen to those people that you disagree with. Call someone that you've been delaying calling because they frustrated you or they disagree about something. Truly listen. That's where it all starts. It starts with all of us listening, being open and not rushing to judgment. It's crazy, the world that we live in today, but we are responsible for our own world and our own representation of what values really look like and what dealing with problems and how we embrace conflict and how we do all of that really sets an example for people. And as we do it well, other people will do it well. People have been an example for me, and I hope that in a lot of ways I can be an example for others to get comfortable being uncomfortable, man. It is not easy. Nothing about these conversations is easy. Nothing about these times are easy, but we can do better. That's for sure. We can do better. And it starts with you. It starts with each of us individually and how we behave and how we live and how we act. And that will cascade into the rest of the world. I hope this message this morning made you think. And I hope you guys have an awesome Thursday. A lot going on in the world. Lots that can knock you off track, right? Lots that can get you really absorbed into things that are really tough. But I hope that you guys have an amazing day, one that's fulfilled. Spend some time loving on your family today, loving on your children today, loving on those people around you today, and be a good example. Embrace those conversations that are uncomfortable. It will change your life, and it will change the lives of those people around you. I love you guys. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you again tomorrow morning, same place, same time, right here on Morning Perspective.
It is ultimately important for you to look at your goals, truly what you want to do in your life, and then look at the people who you spend the most time with in your life and figure out if that lines up.